Did I do an intro last time?
I honestly have no idea. I think so, but maybe not.
Okay.
If not,
didn't.
If not, it's fine. I can
No,
always
you
record.
can do it.
Exactly, and I'll pretend to be you, and it'll be funny.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fine. I don't think you did, but
You
I don't
just start the
remember.
video with this conversation here.
Yeah. Was there an intro? If so, insert it now. If not, there it was. You just heard us doing the intro. Diablo and Final Fantasy XVI.
Yeah.
Four, and then 4 times 4. I made that joke last time. I think we might have done an intro. I don't know.
Maybe. I could always, just figure out. I can do one tonight, like before I go to bed.
Yeah, I'll check.
Or you can do, obviously. You're a big commentary boy now.
I can do anything.
You can do anything you put your mind to.
Yes, finally.
Finally, Fantasy 16?
Yeah.
Maybe we should... I'm going to get rid of that. I don't think that works.
Nope.
Alright, getting into our first new AAA release of the episode. I mean, none of the games we do are that new when it comes to the tower, but that is our style. Diablo 4. Diablo 4 is the game which made me think that maybe we should think more carefully about doing every AAA game, because...
Yes.
This is a difficult one and an awkward one because it's not really my genre. I played Diablo 3, and I played the Reaper of Soul, whatever it's called, expansion. Can't remember when, but I dotted through it very casually with podcasts on in the background. I was like, that was a fine time. I didn't like it enough to want to do any endgame stuff. I just did the campaign mission and then was like, I've got my fill of whatever this format genre is.
Yeah.
And then across the years, I've been seeing clips of Path of Exile. I've been seeing clips of that game, and I do think there's something there that I could like. We talked about it recently in the top 100 games of the whatever, and Vampire Survivors and Risk of Rain 2 were really high up for me. I definitely like casino, shiny explosion games where you're going fast, casting a billion abilities and wiping out enemies in a millisecond. Maybe there's a more eloquent way to describe that genre, but when I see clips of people who have maxed out characters in Path of Exile, I kind of see the dopamine, you know what I mean? I look at it and I'm like, ooh. I don't know how long it takes to get there, probably a long time, but I don't know, that kind of looks satisfying and fun to work towards, maybe with fun RPG trees and decisions and loot. So when Diablo 4 came out, I was definitely interested because I kind of expected the most modernized AAA high production, newest, innovative version of whatever this genre is. And I don't know, man, it felt like playing Diablo 3 again to me, but it just looks better.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It certainly is high budget, but
it looks nice.
Innovative, no. And that's fine, I guess, but yeah, I played Diablo 3 back in the day when it was new. Played it on the PC.
You quite liked it, didn't you?
Yeah, I put a lot of hours into it, and then I got it on the 360 also when it came out there, in 2013 or so. Put a lot of hours into it again then, and enjoyed all of that. But that was 10 years ago, and I have not touched Diablo since. Yeah, and so, I don't know, it's been 10 years since I played Diablo. Diablo 3 was the first Diablo I played, and I thought I was in the mood for Diablo 4. Like, when it came out, I was like, yeah, Diablo, I'm down for this. And I think this is no longer my cup of tea.
Interesting, yeah.
And I think some of that has to do with, like, I get my loot filled in elsewhere, aka Destiny.
Yeah.
And I think that is a key thing that has like been revealed to me by playing Diablo 4 is just like I'm kind of over I like loot games where the entire gimmick is just loot is not interesting to me anymore at all. And it needs to have other hooks like persistence or world or story or gameplay It needs to have one or more of those other things to get me interested, in addition to just loot. And I found Diablo IV just so fucking boring to play. It was so dull. I had one session that was like 90 minutes long. It was probably my second session of playing it, where I was like, oh yeah, Diablo. I got the hooks for a little bit, and then that was it. Every other time I tried to play it, it was like watching paint dry.
Brutal.
It was... yeah, and what you said about, like, we should be a little smarter maybe about what games we are gonna do on this, because I really did not have any interest in finishing Diablo, and I did.
Well done.
But like, if we weren't doing this show, I would not have finished this game, and
I probably wouldn't have played it.
I probably,
to be honest, but I like diving into stuff that like isn't usually my thing out of curiosity.
Yeah, and you know, I think that's always a good thing to do, and in my case, I thought that I was down for Diablo because it had been so long since I'd played Diablo or anything very similar to Diablo. But you know, so I would have played it regardless of us doing this, but yeah, I'm definitely like, I'm out.
Yeah, I don't think I'm as negative. I would say I had, yet again, like with Diablo 3, a completely fine time. I put some podcasts on. I remember you like seeing you mention it briefly in the Discord that you weren't finding the druid class very interesting.
No, he wasn't. Yeah.
I chose Necromancer, and it was kind of cool. I could summon a bunch of minions. I had a bunch of them by the end because I found some stats on weapons which increased like the amount I could have. I had a ability which exploded corpses, so it was like just making people die and then exploding their bodies to kill other people, and that would chain into other people in like an endless explosive bloody ripple, which was pretty satisfying. I had that like it was in the marketing a lot. I had the blood wave. They like to show that in the previews a lot. This big giant wave of blood.
That sounds cool.
It was cool. And then I found an attribute on a weapon. I think my favorite RPG system, because I didn't find a lot of, I don't know, the leveling up that interesting, or even the loot that interesting.
No, yeah.
But every now and then you would find an attribute on a weapon which would actually change the way that a skill worked or functioned. And I found one which tripled the blood wave, so 3 of them, and then another one made my blood wave turn to darkness, so it was like a black blood wave, which was really icky looking. And yeah, I had a completely fine time with Diablo 4.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah.
I clicked on things and I exploded corpses for, I don't know, like 25 hours. For context, I should say that I also beat the game. I think I got to like level 50.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And I did a couple of those like big multiplayer raid things. Not raids, you know, there's like a lot of people involved in like a community event.
Sure.
Those were really cool, I will say. Those events were maybe the only time I got what I really wanted from the entire genre, which was like absolute chaos.
Are those the strongholds?
Yeah, when there's like 12 people doing one of those little public event things.
Okay.
Yeah, those were cool.
I have 2 things related to what you've been talking about. First is I never found an item that changed how any of my abilities worked.
That's a shame, because that's like the only interesting thing I found, really.
Yeah, the only interesting piece of loot I ever found was it was like an amulet or a ring or something, that there was a chance upon taking damage that I would spawn a bubble around me. It was like a Halo 3 bubble shield.
Yeah, I had that on something else as well.
Yeah, and you were completely immune to all damage. And I was like, that's cool. But that was the only thing I found. All of my abilities, I found a few things that were like, oh, there's 1 extra companion flying around. Like I had these ravens that would attack, and it's like, now there's 5 instead of 4. But none of my abilities changed at all throughout my playthrough, and I never, like, I picked my sort of 3 main abilities, and I never once changed anything. Because there's no need to.
I changed a couple of times because some of the things just like weren't that interesting.
Yeah, I guess I probably respec once like 3 hours into the game, and that was it. And then from there on, I never changed anything. And then also on the other player front, never saw anyone.
Oh,
I never saw another human in this game.
What about like in the towns and stuff?
Well, yeah, well, sure, yeah, in the town, but yeah, outside of like the hub. So like the multiplayer was working, and I did see. I'm lying slightly. Like I did see once or twice. I did run past someone else while I was running to my next objective, but every public event I did, which I only did maybe 5 of early on, there was no one around. And I did one of those strongholds on my own. No one was around. I never saw basically anyone in my playthrough. And it made me question why it was online and why they had this like connected world if I spend like 30 hours playing it or however long it took. And I never interacted with anyone.
I think the strongholds are solo because they're like big bases, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure on the names of things.
And then there was the public events, which would sometimes you would be alone, and then every now and then there'd be like 2 to 3 other people there.
Yeah.
And then there was like a mega rare event, which would appear on the map, and it would be like 45 minutes remaining, and you just have to like travel to the specific spot.
I don't think I ever saw that.
They were cool. You'd have like 15 people in a small area doing very similar things to the smaller public events. And you just couldn't see what the fuck was going on because everyone was casting so much shit. And that was what I kind of wanted from the whole game.
Yeah.
Not necessarily with 15 other people at all times.
Just like the enemy density.
Yeah, and I actually went onto Twitch, and I think I remember Shroud was playing a lot of it, so I went to see his like level 100 rogue or something. And I don't know, like he was kind of fast, but it just didn't look that crazy. I don't know, yeah, I looked at a maximum build character on Shroud stream, and I just wasn't that like impressed by the chaos. Because when I see people who have gone mad in Path of Exile, it's like a seizure warning on the screen, like you can't even see what the fuck is going on.
Yeah.
And that's what I like. That's what I like about Breaking Vampire Survivors and Breaking Risk of Rain 2. And that's kind of what I was looking for. And I know I'm not a fan of the genre, and there are other things people are into. I assume it's the loot power grind?
I guess.
Yeah, but I don't know. I clocked over level 50, and I was quite disappointed to see that you didn't get skill points anymore, and it went into like this new Paragon tree.
Oh, weird.
Which didn't seem as exciting. It was more incremental stuff.
Huh.
Again, I didn't get past level 50, so maybe that goes places. I think you still get skill points from doing regional checklist stuff. So I can probably do a couple more things. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to keep piling into my tree forever until my character is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't feel like a game which wanted you to like break your character to pieces. And that's kind of what I want with these type of games. Yeah, I don't know. It was the exact same as Diablo 3, where it was a fun podcast thing. But I yet again am not seeing like this road which looks compelling to put time into or worthwhile. And I kind of want to get it. We keep talking about it on the podcast. Like I'm kind of looking for a live service, like, you know, something I can like really sink time into that I actually enjoy.
Yeah.
And I don't know, when I started Diablo 4, I kind of thought maybe this could be one of those. I'm going to keep an eye on it because I think I enjoyed it more than you. I had a completely fine time, and I, again, put podcasts on and just clicked away on stuff, and I quite enjoyed my build and my character. But yeah, just looking at the future, I'm not seeing anything which is really alluring to me, and I don't know what I need for that.
One thing I was always hoping for was just like ramping up in enemy density, like you were saying.
Yeah.
And I did find the last chunk of the game when you're in hell, they were decent in that last bit there of like, here's a bunch of enemies that are a little higher level than you, and there's a lot of them. That was the only time in the game where I was actually trying and like paying attention and managing my abilities and things. So much of my problem with it is just like, it's so brain dead, and it's not even engaging as a podcast game to me because it's just like it barely feels like a video game to me, where like you just hold down left mouse and then you literally just hit 1, and then I hit 3, and then I hit 2, and then I hold down 1 again, and then I hit 3, and then I get hit 2, and like
isn't that like all MMOs ever though?
Well, sure, maybe. I mean, I don't play MMOs, so
yeah, me neither.
And then like the loot doesn't matter at all in the at least the process of playing through the game normally once, right? You just
Yeah.
You just get the new thing and you equip it. And I just like stopped reading any of the stats unless it was the highest tier orange drop or whatever, you know, which has like all sorts of fancy things on it. But I would just be like, it has more armor or it does me more damage, equip. And it's just like there's no brain activity going on at all. And you know that I'm not saying that doesn't have a place, but just for me, it's just it was just like excruciating to sit through half the time, because it just felt like I just felt like I could be doing literally anything else and it would be more productive with my time.
Yeah,
and it's tricky because like the game is really well made. It seems really well made, right? Like the polish is there, the production values, the feel of things, the sounds of things, the map is really big. You know, it looks good, even though I do think the whole game just looks exactly the same from start to finish. The game just is like a plateau from start to finish. You're just like, here are the goat guys. Here are some marauders with red cloaks, and that's it.
A lot of goat guys.
I would have liked to have seen it go beyond just grim, depressing, wintry towns and deserty towns, and that's it.
Yeah.
I was gonna say story-wise, was it in Star Wars that we were talking about? One of the episodes recently, you said, I think I'm done with side quests. What was that for? Was that Star Wars?
That was Star Wars, yeah.
I think I am getting very close to being done with stories in video games. Quite honestly.
I think I've said that a few times.
And we'll talk about that again in this episode later on. I'm just like, I don't have time and I don't care anymore. I've played enough games. Unless it's doing something really exceptionally good or bad, I just don't care anymore. I just don't want to sit around and listen to people talk at me about generic story shit. And I'm taking a proactive approach to it nowadays and skipping when I get bored. And a little less so perhaps in some more story-driven games, let's say. But in something like Diablo, I paid attention for like 2 hours and then I was just like, I'm done. I can't do this. I don't care. The story presentation stuff seemed good. You know, the like you said, the voice acting, excellent.
Some very cool cutscenes.
Some very
cutscenes.
Yeah, even the like in-engine cutscenes that use your character, there's some nice ones, and then of course there's the few CGI ones that are exceptional. And I watched those because, you know, that's where the money is, and it shows. Yeah. But like, just everyone is just talking so much in every game, and I'm just done. I'm over it. I don't. That's
what I said in Tears of the Kingdom, and you like that fucking weird shit.
Yeah, but it's because I could read it. So it's the passive nature of the storytelling in games nowadays that's really killing me. Where it's just like, I'm just sitting here staring at a screen, and someone is just talking at me. They're just talking, and they just keep talking for so fucking long. They just keep talking. And I'm like, I'm gone. I'm in the kitchen. I'm just bored. I can't do it anymore. If I'm reading or making choices or engaged in some capacity, it's different. But Diablo was where I started doing it, and I'm doing it more as I'm playing through other games. And it's great. So far, so good.
I kind of like the story. Lots of like weird, macabre, hellish stuff.
It's sinister. I appreciated that.
Like the tree with heads on it and all this like really kind of grotesque world design. That was all nice, and all the cutscenes well, nice for my brain. Not nice as in the, you know, the traditional sense of niceness.
Yeah, there's some dark stuff in there that I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Like when that guy's son gets like horribly like murdered, and that was kind of a brutal scene.
By the dogs or something.
He gets like a crystal in his skull.
I might have skipped that cutscene. I don't remember. But there was a cutscene where a guy's like eaten alive by dogs, and it was like
it's horrible.
An in-engine cutscene, and it was really fucked up.
It's really slow, which was how it would be.
Yeah. It was.
Dogs are not very.
They use their M rating for sure.
Yeah, but apart from that, I don't know what else to say.
No.
I clicked on things. I had an okay time. I think I had more fun than you, maybe because my character was, I don't know, a bit more interesting. Maybe Necromancer is a good one. But yeah, I won Mayhem, and it just didn't deliver
more
what
like
I wanted.
Mayhem.
Nice. Yeah. It just feels a bit behind when it comes to like mob density and mayhem, and it just feels like it should be the genre to be leading it, honestly. rather than, I don't know, the Vampire Survivor fucking indie Steam genre. I feel like
the $2 indie almost joke game, sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the multiplayer chaos felt like kind of hard to find or infrequent, and not like it's like a real peripheral part of it. I thought maybe like, I don't know, people would appear during the bosses and be crazy or something. I don't know, it just felt dated to me overall, I'd say.
I agree, yeah.
Like
and
the genre hadn't come very far, or Blizzard's behind, I don't know.
Or like, I don't know, maybe this is just exactly what people wanted. I'm not sure, because like we said, it's definitely proven to me that like I'm just, this is not for me anymore.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I definitely, you know, it's a tricky game to talk about, because it's like I said, it's mostly very good, but I just didn't enjoy it. So
yeah, it's a tricky one.
This episode's strange. This episode's going to be interesting. Both these
Put
games.
it on a tower. Let's put it on a tower.
Oh.
There was part of me where I was going to say like, maybe we should like veto this.
No. It's I actually look forward to this ranking process, because it's tricky. In terms of my engagement,
it's not actually tricky for me.
For me, it's tricky because like my mental engagement, I would put it at the bottom of the list, right? In terms of just like I thought, like I was glued to the screen throughout Callisto Protocol.
Can't put it below
No.
Protocol.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Like I was glued to the screen for Callisto Protocol because it was shit and it was fascinating. But like I can't, you know, in good conscience, Diablo 4 is a well-made game. Like just objectively, yes, it's good. But subjectively, I'm like, bottom is so boring. So that's what makes it tricky to place for me, because I'm just like, below Star Wars?
I was initially going to say above Star Wars, but this is a two-player decision-making process.
I could see that as well, because I think we had a lot of like issues with how Star Wars was assembled, you know, the construction. Yeah. The construction of Diablo is undeniably good.
Diablo 4 never annoyed me like Star Wars did.
No. Like, Dead Island 2 and Diablo 4 being sort of beside each other would feel good in a sense, because they're both kind of one-note loot games.
Dead Island 2 is way above Diablo 4.
But Dead Island 2 was way more interesting than Diablo 4, for sure. And
I'm going to protect that game.
Yeah. So I'm fine. Yeah, I liked Star Wars more than Diablo, but I also had a lot more issues with how rough Star Wars was versus, you know, Diablo being very smooth all the way through.
Yeah, it's a well-made game, but maybe just isn't for our brains. I would be happy above Star Wars. I just want to keep pushing Star Wars down further and further.
I would be...
People were so upset with where we put Star Wars.
Man. I could go either way. I could put it above Star Wars or under Star Wars. I don't really care about Star Wars. Like, I don't really have any attachment to Star Wars, so let's just say above Star Wars. Fuck it.
Let's say above Star Wars. Keep pushing Star Wars down forever. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, that's fine.
It feels respectful as well, because, you know, we're being honest.
Yeah,
knowing that it's not really our thing.
And Dead Island 2 is better than Diablo.
I think if we know it's not for us, the best thing we can try and do is be like almost a little objective, or put some objectivity in there a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
And I think we've done that.
I mean, that's, you know, sort of middle-ish of the pack, right? Of 10 games, it's at number 7 now. You know, that's not... If it was a top 10 list, Diablo at number 7, that sounds about right to me, right?
Yeah, I can't imagine anyone like being furious about that. It's like, come on, look at that game. You're just clicking on shit.
You really are just clicking on shit.
I don't know. Does that game have super fans? Who knows?
Probably. If it's a video game, it has super fans, and they're gonna find us.
Yeah.
They're gonna find this video.
No.
He's here. Remember, we take him alive.
All right, moving on to... I mean, this video is so late, dudes. I mean, when we recorded Diablo 4, we were kind of prompt for our promptness, our average, you know, like when we get to things. But this is like really late. It's Final Fantasy XVI. It took me a long time to get through this game.
Same.
I think I'm just going to dive in and say that I don't know how I feel about this game at all.
Me neither.
I can't remember being like more mixed on a game in a long time.
Yeah.
I think certain parts of this game were so boring I wanted to pass out multiple times.
Yeah.
Some parts of this game feel really, really, really old and just lame and uninteresting. And then there's portions of the game which I would say I quite enjoyed and had a good time with. And then there are parts of the game which are kind of legendary and like awe-inspiring and so dumb that I think everyone should see them. And when the credits roll, it's just like a really uneven package, which maybe is just suitable for Final Fantasy in general. I haven't played a lot of this franchise. I remember playing 13, and then we had 15, which also was a strange, messy game, but I ultimately had like a love-hate relationship with that game and beat it and liked it. And I would say very similar with 16. I would say I have a love-hate relationship with this game. I think my biggest issue would be pacing. I don't think I'll let you do your synopsis, your overall thoughts before we go into details. But yeah, pacing is probably my biggest issue with this game, and I just feel very mixed about different chunks.
I will take all the words you just said and just say, yep.
Okay.
100% agreement. This game is just completely all over the place in pretty much every department. And I would agree 100% that the biggest issue I have with it is pacing. It has issues in the combat and the story stuff as well, but like the pacing is just wild.
Yeah.
The first note I wrote down for this game is that this is like an energy vampire at times, where it's just like, I sit and start, I'm like, yeah, Final Fantasy. I sit and like within 6 minutes, I'm just like, Colin Robinson has just sucked all of the life force out of me. And I'm just like, Clive, stop talking, dude, please.
There's so much like slow walking around the hideout.
Oh my
god, the slow hideout stuff just goes on forever.
Yeah, that stuff where you're just doing these like shot, reverse shot, over the shoulder, talking to guys, and you walk like 10 feet and then talk to more people and walk 10 feet and talk to more people. There are so many chunks like that, and they're so fucking boring.
And the fact that you can't sprint makes the hideout feel like the biggest place in the world. When someone's
so
like on the top deck, you're like, oh no, it's gonna take 45 seconds just to walk to this guy.
And early on, I think the pacing might be at its worst, but part of that also comes from the fact that at about the 20-hour mark, I started skipping everything that wasn't a proper full-blown cutscene where the camera would move around.
Yeah, I was skim reading.
Yeah, so I didn't even bother. I just was like, I don't give a fuck what you're talking about. It doesn't matter. Let's be honest. The game's not that complicated. But those first like 15 hours, man, oh my god, you do like this big dumb thing and it's great, and then there's like 3 hours where there's like almost no gameplay in between the combat chunks of the game, where you just walk forward. And then watch a cutscene, and then walk forward and watch a cutscene, and oh wow!
And it's strange because this game has side quests, it has like monster hunting quests, so it has like this extra content if you are looking for more. And yet it feels like it needs to shove the side quest format like in the middle of like cinematic awesome main quests.
Right.
I mean, technically they are main quests, but they don't feel like main quests. They're just like these bizarre time wasters or fetch things. All in-engine, over-the-shoulder dialogue stuff. And I just don't know why that was in the main quest thread. Especially when you already have a bunch of side quests and side content if people want to do more stuff like that optionally.
And I think I can say for both of us, we didn't do the side content in this game, right? Like when we're talking about, we're talking purely about main quests, and the only side quests I did, there were like 4 of the little plus symbol green quests, which I did those, and that's fine. But like, I'm talking purely about main quest pacing here, and I mean, I wrote down one note is you do the Titan fight, which is real stupid.
So sick. I love that.
It's real dumb. And then the immediately following that quest, you are literally buying cloves of garlic from a
in that
market stall. as the main quest, and I'm just like, what are we doing here, game? This is
It's
like
so weird, yeah.
Obviously, you need pacing variety, right? You can't just be at 100 or at 11 or whatever all the time. But like, going from 11 to 0 and then back to 11 again isn't good pacing either. That's like the worst roller coaster of all time.
Yeah, it's weird because, I mean, if the game just buffed the playtime with the more... I don't know what you want to call when you're like in an area and you're walking from A to B and there's ads in the way and you're doing like a bunch of ad fights and then you kind of fight like maybe a bigger guy, not like a boss, like a mini boss.
Yeah.
Like there's quite a lot of that stuff, and I mean, I would rather just do more of that, even if it was like artificial padding. I'd rather be like swinging my sword at someone than talking to a market salesman and then going through some drama with some mayor has lost a girl and you're like finding a comb. Yeah, it's very strange, and it sucks the wind out of the momentum all the time.
Yeah, the only other pacing thing I would say is that like you mentioned, the sort of, I don't know, I would call them like the 7 out of 10s on the paceometer are the ones where you're just like killing ads and progressing through linear chunks.
Yeah.
My only complaint with those ones is that they become very predictable as well, where it's just like, oh, here's 5 enemies, oh, here's 10 enemies, oh, here's a mini boss, here's 5 enemies. You know, it just like repeats that, and it gets, especially in the last sort of 5 or 6 hours, they do that a lot, and it gets really predictable, where you're just like, yep, all right, and here's the big guy. Oh yeah, there he is. I'm gonna fight him for the next 5 minutes, and then you just sort of repeat that over and over again. But the combat is at least interesting enough, I would say.
Yeah, I like the combat in this game, but I feel like it works a little better in 1v1 situations in comparison to like when you're against a large group of enemies. When you're against like a bunch of ads, I feel like the combat feels okay. I had some good AoE attacks, and it was satisfying to use like Titan's big wall cataclysmic attack against like 16 enemies. But I don't know, I always found the encounters when you're facing like 17 dudes just to feel a bit like nothing.
Yeah.
But I think the thing I enjoyed most in the entire game is I actually quite enjoy the boss fights. And I don't mean like the mega god fights. I call them god fights. But this game has a lot of boss fights where you're Clive and you're fighting with a sword. Yeah. I was surprised by how much I enjoyed just fighting 1v1 against a bigger dude as Clive with my sword. It's not the best in the world, I will say, because I feel like we've been a bit negative, but I do like things about this game. I was expecting maybe something a little bit more electric from the Devil May Cry combat director.
Yeah, I agree.
It's definitely like a spectacle at times with all the crazy powers you get and how many you can unleash. But yeah, the Devil May Cry 5 combat system to me is quite superior and more satisfying and just like more goofy and fun than this, and maybe that altered my expectations, maybe not in the best direction, but overall I do think the combat system is fun and definitely a step above what I remember from 15.
Yeah, it's interesting because they basically turned it into like DMC, aka a character action game, right? Because there's no... I still really like the FF7 style where you have different party members and things, and you can issue commands sort of on the fly while fighting.
Me too, yeah.
I was I liked the combat, actually. I agree what you said. The boss fights when you're Clive are the one it's at that's most fun, for sure. But I also thought the combat was at its most fun in the first sort of 15 hours, where you actually had a limited number of the fancy cooldown abilities, and you had to actually sort of do some button combos with just your regular attacks and manage the cooldowns better. But eventually, after a certain point, you just get so many of the icon abilities that you just cycle through the cooldowns.
Yeah.
You just go...
It's like the God of War Ragnarok power curve.
Exactly, yeah. You just do your first two, and then your next two, and then your next two, and then by then your first two have regenerated, and you just keep cycling through the 6 icon abilities over and over and over again. And, you know, they look good, and they do lots of damage, and there's a lot of cool and interesting variety to all of them, and interesting combos and all these things. But the actual, I don't know, like mental effort and finger dexterity, all that stuff is just kind of like brain dead after a certain point on normal.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
You're just managing cooldowns over and over again, which is too bad because Yeah, because there's a lot of good stuff in the combat system. They just don't really... It just becomes very, very like mainstream. They want you to beat the game, right? They want it to be friendly and fun and easygoing, and that's fine. I don't dislike that, but I just kind of wished it had kept me more engaged as it went on. At a certain point, it's just mindless.
I definitely agree when near the end, I had like a bunch of like super ultra powerful moves, and I was kind of just cycling through them. I think the only thing which required a bit of like thought and strategy was I used Titan's block parry thing quite a lot. And that was like the one juggling thing I had to keep in mind, which kept combat a little bit interesting. But yeah, I agree. Near the end, I was just cycling through abilities and not really switching towards an icon for like a specific thing. And I feel like there could have been more juggling reasons, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, yeah. It's interesting, they're very slow about doling out new icon stuff for the first half or even the first 2/3 of the game, and then you get just like 4 of them in the last 10 hours.
Yeah.
And it was sort of hard to like tear myself away from my sort of muscle memory, right, of what I had.
Also, you need the points to kind of buff the spells anyway,
You do, but they're good about just letting you refund the points whenever and reassign things.
I did forget about that.
Yeah, you can just refund everything, and that's good. That's like a really nice, clever thing to just, you can mix things up whenever you want. But it's just like, why would I mix things up when I know what I'm doing and I've fucking everyone up? But I did still mix things up like 2 or 3 times, and I liked the end chunk that I had, which was who's the last one you get? I don't know. The like crazy.
I don't know. It was dark, but I used that as well.
Yeah, the crazy dark sword was good, and I liked the lightning a lot, and one other one that I've forgotten at this point.
Yeah, what was the one that was like kind of like teal green?
Yeah, that
Bahamut. I don't know what his.
Bahamut. Yeah.
What his.
He was like light powers. Yeah, I used him a lot. That was fun, and I liked sort of min-maxing the damage near the last 5 hours, where I'm like, okay, if I do things when they're staggered in just the right way, I can get. I think my highest was like, I think I managed to crack 100k in stagger damage, and I was like, ooh, that feels good to optimize that sort of stuff. So
stagger's a good mechanic. It's satisfying.
It is, yeah. I think just like the raw combat and all that stuff is quite solid in the game. It's just not.
I would say solid, yeah.
Yeah, it's just maybe missing that last little bit of extra something to
like mastery and
mastery. I think that's the right word for it. I also think it's missing the one thing that God of War, like you said, Ragnarok does well. Obviously, a lot of that game is just cooldown management like this one, but that game also has like all these maybe too many RPG sort of systems in there, you know, of like, I'm gonna make all these builds, whereas Final Fantasy XVI doesn't have any RPG mechanics in it. Outside of the skill tree. And I feel like if that had been a more interesting part, that might have complemented the combat better, perhaps. I'm not sure. But the lack of RPG stuff just makes me, it sort of adds to that feeling of just like I'm on cruise control with the combat, because I can't change anything. There's nothing to customize.
I like any game which gives you just a small way to make any sort of build. Even Dead Island 2, sorry.
Right.
Had those card systems which made it so you could build like a weird zombie slaying min-maxing thing. Yeah. And there was a couple of like amulets and rings, I think, that maybe gave something towards, I don't know, but it was
like a 10% buff to one attack, and you're like, who cares? Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I would consider myself someone who's like quite good and quite enjoys not exploiting, but like min-maxing RPG systems and making some sort of focused build. And I just didn't find myself doing that in this game. Maybe it's not really possible. Maybe it's not really worth it. But yeah, I just kind of found 3 icons that I liked and then just dodged. I just dodged.
Yeah. And then you just, like, every 4 hours, you just buy the new, better sword and equip that. And it doesn't change anything except it increases your attack damage by 5. And you're like, oh, okay. Oh, and then I got a new belt. Also does the increase by 5. Great.
It feels like they forgot to do it, or they were going to dedicate purely towards action and felt like they needed to tack on something to make it like an RPG/JRPG. And I feel quite similar about, there's like these portions where you're going through like a semi-open world area.
Yeah.
And that also feels like it was made like in the last like 10 months of the game's development, because it's like empty except for like a couple of enemies and some items which are useless. And it's just like, why am I running through here on my Chocobo?
And you get two Jill or Gil or whatever. You get two Gil. And
as soon
it's
as I got that, I was
wow,
like, why would I ever pick up one of these ever again?
I know. Yeah, I did the exact same thing. That first time when it finally opens up at like the 10 or 12 hour mark and you can ride around that area, and it's like, oh, there's all these little sparkly things off in the distance. Oh, 2 Gil. I have 65,000. What is what?
That's so weird. I don't know
why am I getting 2 Gil?
Yeah.
Like what's going on here? All that stuff, all of the things that I would sort of associate a lot of traditional Final Fantasy with, feels like a last minute stapled on thing in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's interesting. So yeah, it's comfy and easygoing. I think the boss fights when you're Clive have a pretty good flow. I think the bosses are well designed when it comes to readability. It's usually very clear when they're going to attack you. You can jump in, and it's not like, Elden Ring where you have to play 3-4 times to learn what a boss is going to do. It's like they have very like obvious wind-ups, and pretty much maybe I'd fight a boss and like one attack would catch me off guard, but then the next time it would be like super clear. And I find, maybe it's not the most difficult thing in the world, but if bosses have like very clear tells, it's just like kind of satisfying to jump into a fight and feel competent off the rip because you're reading their movement. It was like one of my biggest complaints about Elden Ring. I like bosses that are readable and I'm dodging because I had some like intuition, and that's how the majority of Final Fantasy XVI boss fights felt, and I liked it. I thought the game looks cool in action. I just found the ad stuff when you're against a group of enemies to feel, I don't know, just kind of like nothing. They don't do any damage at all when they hit you. I never really got used to the auto lock and switching between targets, and yeah, the camera turned really slowly for my settings on console, but that's irrelevant.
And I would say the one other like sort of negative thing that is very much applies to combat is, you said readability. I agree, the enemy tells are good, but there is a certain lack of readability when you're in combat purely because of the absurd amount of particle effects on screen. It's really stupid, and it didn't really matter in the. It definitely doesn't matter when you're fighting ads, and it doesn't really come into play too much when you're fighting the bosses, but most of the time you can't really see Clive, and I definitely got frustrated at times where I'm like, what the fuck am I don't even know how I'm supposed to dodge or react to anything that's going on, because it's like the 4th of July is happening on screen at all times.
Some of the shit in the last boss fight was visually confusing.
Yes, and I would say that was at its worst in the big icon god boss fights, for sure.
Yeah, should we get into it?
Yeah. Those are great.
There's something.
They're not the most interesting to play because they're very straightforward.
Yeah, they're mostly unlosable, I'd say. Yeah,
but they do a good job of pacing those fights in that, like, you do sort of 2 or 3 minutes, and you're like, this is okay. I'm getting bored. I'm doing like the one or two attacks over and over again, and they do a good job of, after those 2 minutes, they mix it up, and then they do another 2 minutes and another 2 minutes, and the pace is really good. They're kind of easy, but they're really dumb. They're really dumb.
Yeah, they're crazy.
And it really feels like their favorite movie is Godzilla vs. Kong. And like, I get it. I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm there for it. I know you like Big Dumb as well, so...
Yeah, they were great. It just felt like they were having fun with those god fights. Like, they were laugh out loud stupid at times. Like when you go to space while fighting Bahamut, and the entire Titan thing where Titan comes back is like his second evolution, and he's just like the size of a globe.
He's a mountain.
And you have to like use his own arms against him, and it's just, it's just really fun. I also like really love the music that's used in the god fights.
Oh, it's so weird. Yeah,
it's so like
great.
Weirdly epic and orchestral. I mean, people have probably seen the footage. If you haven't, I don't know. They're the best parts of the game.
Yeah.
I think like the only thing I have to say is I found that the beginning, like 2, 3, or 4 of them were so ridiculous that the last couple couldn't like raise the bar because the bar was at the peak. Like after
bar
the
was
Titan
in
fight,
space.
yeah. Like even Bahamut was like not as good as Titan for me, and then the last one against Odin was I mean I'd like, and even like the last boss was again like scale wise there was some cool stuff when you first entered the final area, but I feel like it raises the bar too quickly where at the end you're almost like a little bit what's the word, desensitized towards these ridiculous fights. But yeah, that's like the only minor complaint I have. They're ridiculous, really fun, and just like kind of I don't know, they make my brain melt whenever they happen. They're great.
Yeah, yes, they are delightful, and they are like the main driving force for me to just keep playing the game. I was, like you said, I was enjoying it at times, but I always knew, and they make it pretty clear how many there are going to be. Yeah. So there's always this thought in the back of your head of like, well, I'm getting closer to another big dumb fight, and they've been pretty good so far. So yeah, I'm going to keep playing this, and that's there's not a lot of like truly gigantic scaled fights in games right now. And they obviously just sort of turn off everything else in the environment, and it's just like you're just doing this one thing, but they do a very good job of it. And that's not an easy thing, and it's I wish there was more gigantically stupid stuff like that. I wish some games on the tower had gotten more into that territory. Yeah. But
it's like God of War 3 type stuff.
Yes, it's very God of War 3. Yeah, like when you fight Kronos and when you're like in between his little fingers and he just are like an ant. Yeah,
that's why I like the Titan fight so much.
That's what me of games Kronos. Like. It's what games are all about. Only games could do something this stupid and make it. Yeah, and it's like they're a good time.
Well, I think the only thing that's really left is the story.
I don't care about the story. That's my summary of the story. They spend a lot of time talking in this game, and none of it's very interesting. Ultimately.
I have nothing against like building up characters in the world, but you kill everyone in the world. You kill all the main guys; they all die, and all their kingdoms fall to ash. So yeah, I didn't pay attention to any of that, and it didn't really seem very relevant because it's a video game and every single kingdom feels like its own mini chunk, mini crystal, mini god fight, and then you kind of move on to the next kingdom. And I liked the world design. There's different places with different factions of life, and they treat the gods in different ways. But again, just the surface level stuff I got from cutscenes was perfectly enough. I didn't need to read a codex because you kill the leader of every place anyway, or they die somehow else.
Yeah, the high level plot it's very simple to keep on top of, and there aren't ultimately that many characters, and also most of them die as well, so whatever.
I would say my main complaint is I actually thought the basic idea of the plot was completely fine for a RPG, JRPG adventure. You've got 6 crystals or whatever, 6 kingdoms, they're all fighting. I like that they're fighting amongst each other, and it's not everyone after you. You kind of sneak in under the veil of other battles. And your objective is to kill the 5 big crystals that it sends the world into turmoil. The basic concept of the plot I thought worked for a video game and was, kind of fine. It was like a weird JRPG version of Game of Thrones, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
But for me, the second half kind of lost me because there has to be an ultimate god.
Of course.
It's like a weird trope where you have to fight a god who made humanity. And then at the end, he goes, but with my friends at my back, and even though our humans have our problems, and we're kind of bastards, when we come together, it's like, I've played this game before, man.
Yeah,
Why does it always have to go this way? And even with the Final Fantasy VII remaster, it does the same thing where at the end you're against an ultimate boss, but that boss is fate or something.
I don't necessarily have a major problem with that because it's sort of, at a certain point you sort of go into a game and you're like, all right, I know what I'm going to be getting, right? And that's...
Yeah.
But I think it's more effective when the people and the friends and all that are actually like characters I care about at all. Like in Final Fantasy VII, like that cast of characters, they're delightful. But 16's party and the main cast are just kind of, I just, they don't do anything for me. Sid was okay, but I feel like he just wasn't around enough for me to really get attached to him. They hang a lot of the plot on you really caring about Sid, and I was on board with Sid, but he kind of felt like he was gone maybe 20 or 30% too soon, which was unfortunate.
Sure.
Yeah. And then there's Joshua and Torgal, and that's kind of it, you know? And it's I just didn't really get it. There wasn't enough, I don't know. There wasn't just enough personality from them for me to really care about them.
I think Clive is fine. I think the protagonist of every JRPG is not that important.
No, I agree.
I didn't have any interest in Jill or Joshua. Even though like the main backup characters, I didn't think they were like interesting or had any personality.
No.
I like Sid, but he's not in the game for very long. And then you have like the one-eye scout guy who's got like a weird like Northern British accent.
Oh yeah,
fucking hell! And he's quite a good character, but again,
Gav,
he's not Gav. That's it. He's kind of a background character. And I think the game is just overall missing a couple of like good characters. I thought the main Bahamut guy was kind of cool, but he's not in it a lot. He kind of becomes a bit more important right at the end. I just think the main cast is missing a couple of like more bombastic, bigger personalities and maybe a bit more fun. Yeah, I think that kind of comes towards the end of my thoughts, and this whole chat just comes back to like my first ever thought, which was kind of just mixed across the board in all regards. Yeah. Mixed on the story, mixed on the combat, mixed on the general structure of the game, mixed on the characters. Yeah, the god fights are very cool and some of the boss fights are very cool, but it's a bit all over the place. But maybe that's just how main entry Final Fantasy games are now. Because
maybe
I played the last 3, which is 13, 15, and 16, and they've all been all over the place. All of them. I don't know, maybe that's just how they are. Maybe that's what makes Final Fantasy what it is when it comes to the main ones. Just like a weird mishmash of ideas, some of it bad and some of it good. And that's it.
I weirdly come away with it from it being like kind of more positive on it than it's like I like it more than I should. I like it in spite of itself. I don't know. I liked it more than I should have.
It's a weird franchise, and I like that it's weird. And I feel like if the game was a masterpiece, it would ruin it. You know what I mean? Like I kind of like that the series franchise continues to be like just, I don't know, a mess.
Yeah, I think I agree. I would propose a spot. I'll propose a spot here for where I think I would put it. All right?
Yeah, I think I have an idea too.
I would put it between God of War and Dead Island 2. Like underneath God of War, above Dead Island 2, at number 6.
Yeah, that is where I was thinking as well.
Look at that. Wow.
Even though I think we were more complimentary towards Dead Island 2, there's something endearing about the ambition of certain sections of Final Fantasy XVI.
Definitely.
Like Dead Island 2 is humble and good at what it does, and Final Fantasy XVI kind of isn't at times, but it goes for it so strong at certain points that I kind of have more respect for the game than I do compared to Dead Island 2. And yeah, I think I'm going to remember Final Fantasy XVI more than I'm going to remember Dead Island 2 like in a year's time.
Totally. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I know. I don't know if that makes it a bit boring, but I don't have a fight here.
No, okay, that's fine. I'm all peace and love, baby. Whatever, I don't care.
I think I'm happy. Number 6.
Number 6. Yeah, that feels right. You know, sort of in the middle. I think that feels appropriate. Patreon game ranking time.
Right.
We did it early last time. We're doing it late this time in the video.
We're a mess.
We're a mess. Thank you for all the suggestions. Here they are on screen in this lovely infographic I made. There's a lot of suggestions. We have picked, and there were a few that we were considering. One of them was like Cyberpunk we almost picked. but we decided, well, we should probably wait until, we actually have time to play through that game again with the expansion and all the updates and all that shit. But the one we have picked is Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. Resident Evil 7 from Jake.
Thanks, Jake.
Thanks, Jake.
This is going to be an interesting one because I really, really love 7. Even though it has issues. Like everyone knows, the enemy variety is not great.
It's bad, yeah.
Some of the boss fights are like really clunky and weird, like when you're fighting Jack in the barn for like the 7th time.
Yeah.
But there's something so, at this point, like iconic and memorable about the Baker family and that game in general, where it's this game's kind of like a legendary to me at this point. I just think Resident Evil 7 and the Baker family and all the places you go to are just like an incredible like cast of villains. I think they're amazing. I also only just recently played all the DLCs right before Resident Evil 8 came out last year. And that's made me enjoy the game even more because the DLCs are like crazy experimental side pieces which flesh out the characters even more. So I kind of love Resident Evil 7 like a shit ton.
Yeah, so just to clarify, we have not replayed it for this discussion, and part of the reason we picked it is because we know it really well.
Yeah.
I have not replayed 7 since I got really into 7, which is when it came out, but I replayed 7 multiple times when it was new, and I never got around to the DLC, but at some point
I will do... good, man. It's so good.
At some point I'll do 7 replay with DLC and an 8 replay probably. And yes, God, every Resident Evil game is difficult to rank because they all have their ups and downs and their pluses and minuses and all these things. And 7's negatives, like you said, the enemy variety is not good. I actually never minded the boss fights. I thought they were fine. And then the other negative I have is like the final section in the caves, the mines, whatever it is. Yeah. I remember never being I never loved that. It also sort of suffers a little bit from the like RE2 problem of I think the first environment with the house is the best environment, much like the cop shop is the best environment, but the later areas are still good. Grandma's house, pretty good. Crazy Guy's Saw Festival, pretty good. And the boat section, I don't mind. I kind of like the boat section. It's a nice change of pace. Yeah.
I don't hate it either. People seem to really dislike that, and I think because, whenever the main games leave the interconnected main map, people don't like that as much, and I understand that. But yeah, I don't mind the boat part or the end part.
It's sort of... the boat is another sort of interconnected area, but on its own, and you get some of that fun, like, I don't know, Ring-ish energy, right, with the little girl spooky stuff, boats, ghost ship, I don't mind that section at all. And I would agree, RE7 is, kind of more revered now than it was at the time.
Yeah, for me it is, for sure.
I would say the bigger part for me is that it's like, that game really nailed the balance of, we've got lots of Resident Evil in here, aka dumb, weird, locked doors. Yeah. Basically. Which I love. I love that stuff. Interconnected, weird doors, dumb locks. And it's fucking scary.
Yeah, it is at times, yeah.
I find first person way more scary than third person, and I think they nailed the balance of just bringing in all these weird horror tropes from all these different movies that it was pulling from and making a cohesive, gross, spooky thing.
Yeah.
So that it's true, and it like relaunched Resident Evil, right?
Yeah,
it
that's what I was gonna say.
It revived Resident Evil, which is a majorly important point to make.
A brave switcheroo.
I also really love the fact that the game has great replayability. I've never replayed any of the Resident Evil games aside from 7, and 7, I wanted to replay it to sort of master it and conquer it because I found it very scary to play through the first time, alone in the dark like 6 years ago. It was very effective, but it was also really fun to be like, all right, nothing scares me in this game anymore. I got X-ray goggles and speed boots and an infinite ammo this and a chainsaw and all these weird unlockables that make playing through even easier. Then I just feel like all the other games haven't quite hit that. And I have weirdly been chasing those highs in every Resident Evil game since 7, which is praise for Resident Evil 7. Like, there are a lot of things it does right that none of the other games have quite done as well. And I want that. I want that very badly. So, yeah, 7's very good.
Yeah, I love that game. It's my favorite of the modern ones, for sure. But Resident Evil 4 Remake is like its own thing in my head. I don't consider that one of like the main modern ones. That's like a juicy remake.
Would you consider 2 one of the main modern ones?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is weird.
Yeah,
I don't know.
But I sort of understand what you're coming from.
I don't know. I'm categorizing these.
So I don't know how the fuck to rank it.
Okay, well, I'm just going to say a thing.
Go for it.
It's above Horizon for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I would agree. Yeah.
That's my starting point. It's above Horizon.
Mm-hmm.
But next is Resident Evil 4 Remake, which I thought was fucking amazing. I really, really love that remake. Just because the combat is so good in 4, in my opinion.
Like, I think it's gonna be which one is here. It's RE4 above 7 or 7 above 4. Like, that I feel like is what's gonna happen here, right? It's the battle of the 2 RE games for number 3, basically.
Would I put 7 above Elden Ring? I can't do that. I just love the characters too much.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's RE4 versus RE7. RE4 Remake versus RE7.
I think so, yeah. And it's tricky because I agree that like 4 is so focused and it just does its thing, right? And it does it really well. And I should say I put a lot of time into RE4 Professional New Game Plus, which is like a fun sort of mixed difficulty of like, I've got everything, but shit hits real hard, but I'm still kind of cruising through it. And it was really fun. And I definitely started to appreciate a lot of the combat nuance and just sort of the encounters more as I was playing through that.
Nice.
And RE4 I wouldn't say has necessarily any segment that's bad. I didn't like the opening village section of RE4 as much as the rest of the game, but I wouldn't call the opening section bad.
I think I've decided where I want to put it. I think Resident Evil 4 is better.
I think RE7's better.
Ooh. There's so much good shit in Resident Evil 4, though.
There is, but there is also in 7.
Yeah,
I don't know.
But the amount of content you get in Resident Evil 4, the quality of that game, the combat system.
The enemies are way better, the combat's way better in 4.
The highlights of Resident Evil 4 as well, with the, oh my god, what are the guys who just don't die? The weird milky boys who slip on the ground.
Oh yeah, the regenerators,
regenerators are my favourite villain design in years.
Those guys are great. The big double ogre fight's real good.
Yeah.
The Indiana Jones Temple of Doom section's real good.
Yeah. I think for me it's difficult because I prefer the characters and like setting or world of RE7 much more than RE4, which is just kind of a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah.
But I like playing RE4 a lot more. I just think it's a better game.
Yeah, I would agree, but I would also say that I think 7, the clunkiness of 7 aids the spookiness and the sort of tension of 7, which I want more of from a survival horror game. Like, I want there to be some tension and difficulty when they're shooting and dealing with enemies. And I've been chasing that high. I have been chasing the RE7 highs, and I've never quite gotten it from any of the RE games. And but also I don't like the later chunks of RE7 as much. RE4 ends way better, that's for sure.
Yeah. I don't have any like sections of RE4 that I personally like really didn't like.
Yeah.
Someone's got a buckle here.
Yeah, and it's an interesting, like, they're also both doing sort of impressive things on a sort of like leaned back game development side. Like RE4, they took, arguably one of maybe the top 3 most revered games ever released. I feel like people just fucking adore the original RE4. It's it's sacrosanct. You can't touch it. But they did, and they messed with it, and they made a game that everyone was just like, this game's fucking amazing. It's awesome. They did it. They somehow took the beloved thing and made it new and fresh.
Yeah.
On the other hand, RE7, you're coming off of RE6, which was just a giant fucking disaster. No one liked that game at the time. It was just a big dumb shit show. and they took a long, many years off. Here comes RE7, and it's like, oh, it's first person. Oh, it looks like, Outlast and Amnesia, and they're like, oh, here we go. They're just going to be copying, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, spooky hillbillies.
Yeah.
But they did it. They nailed it, and they made something very cohesive that brought RE back from the brink of oblivion, I would say, and launched it into like the best era of it's ever been. So like both games are, I don't know. I feel like the games are like completely tied in it because there's so many, just like you've got this and you've got that, and it doesn't have this, but this one's got that, and it's really tricky.
I don't know. I don't know if I care anymore. I just like them both so much.
I was gonna say that like RE4 is probably more consistently better, but I just don't know if it's doing quite as much,
I think RE4 is a better game. I mean, I've already said that. But it plays better, and there's more content, and the production values are like, quite modern with the new RE engine stuff, and it looks incredible. But for me, RE7 is the best like personality out of maybe any horror game I've ever played, with the most memorable characters.
True.
And some of the most memorable gameplay moments. So yeah, it's a hard competition.
Yeah,
this is hard.
I really don't. This is the hardest one ever, I would
keep
say.
switching.
Like my heart is definitely for RE7 above RE4.
RE4 is just a remake.
It is also a remake of a game that was great in 2004 when it came out. So there is an element of like, we have the blueprint here already.
Yeah.
But also, they fucked with the most holy of blueprints and did a good job doing that. Yeah.
But RE7 has so much dog shit in it.
Does it?
Shit. Well, not so much, but there's some weird shit in that game.
Like what? I'm trying to remember.
The Margate boss fight's a bit weird.
Oh yeah, when she's like skittering around on the ceiling.
Yeah, it goes on for a bit, and it's a bit, I don't know.
And then she turns into like a giant eyeball creature.
I don't know, actually. Some of that stuff's so good when you're in a house for the first time and you're in that swampy area.
Yeah.
That stuff's good.
Yeah. The spooky fly stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I do think... I don't know. I don't know.
What does your gut say?
Resident Evil 7... I think Resident Evil 4 should be above Resident Evil 7 just because it's more legendary and iconic in the gaming world. And we're drawn... Like, personally, subjectively, it seems like we're quite drawn on the game.
Yeah.
So maybe what it means in, like, the ethos of gaming should kind of put Resident Evil 4 just, like, a tad higher.
But I think RE4, the remake, which is what we're talking about, in the grand scheme, is not actually like, as important as RE7 was.
True.
In terms of bringing back survival horror and bringing back Resident Evil. Would Alan Wake 2 exist without RE7? Makes you think.
You know what? Alright, RE7 goes above RE4. I've changed my mind.
Wow!
Okay, RE7 can go above RE4 remake. Not RE4, RE4 remake.
Yeah, it's the remake that we ranked, right? I've never played the original, so...
Yeah, so not a ranking of RE4 as, like, when it came out, it changed everything. This is talking about the remake.
Yeah.
Which was a very, very, very good remake.
It was very good.
But yes. RE7 is a unique piece of content.
Yeah, in terms of modern games and like games on the tower and games are upcoming and all these things, I think RE7 has had more of a direct impact on gaming, the modern world, than the RE4 remake will have. I mean, that's, it's not really fair because who knows, but like, I don't know. You can't, an amazing remake is ultimately just an amazing remake, and I don't know how much it can actually inspire. Maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? It's sort of irrelevant.
No, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've changed my mind. RE7. It's our tower as well, and 7 to me is just more personality.
I do think, like, as more time goes on and as we discuss RE more, the more I think RE7 is probably number one for me in the modern RE ranking scale. But
yeah, we can get to RE8 one day.
We don't have time to do that. That's a 90-hour fist fight. Okay. RE7, wow, is up at number 3 now.
It did it. What will the next one be? Because I'm actually
Well-
not sure.
Starfield, definitely.
Sure, that makes sense.
What else goes with Starfield? I don't know yet.
Yeah, because obviously Baldur's Gate came out, but I'm not going to beat that this year, probably.
No, and I'm not going to get to that until November at the earliest, just because of how busy things have been.
Yeah, we have Armored Core.
Oh yeah, Armored Core. Right, so that, maybe? I don't know when I'm going to get to that either, so...
Yeah. We could do Starfield and the other Microsoft game.
That was my sort of...
That was your
Yeah.
idea. We're not going to spoil what it is, but you know what I'm talking about.
That would be pretty good. I mean, it's only like 7 hours.
Yeah, fine. We can do that.
Okay. It'll be bad.
It's just so
not
much
a good
stuff
time.
out now, and I've got to, like, slot that in somehow.
Yeah, well, you know, we'll figure it out. We won't lock anything in aside from Starfield for now.
But alright.
Yeah, all right.
I think that is episode 3 of The Tower done. Yeah, apart from that, guys, thanks for listening. The Tower is getting there, getting bigger. And next episode probably will not be very soon because Peter got me the whole of Starfield to get through. And I've got
There's 1,000 planets. Like, it's
yeah,
going
we've
to
got
take
to
forever.
visit every single one of them. And I have another
Yeah.
game to get through because the idea is too stupid. I'm going to have to do that.
Oh,
Which will be good because it's about time we talked about that thing.
yes, it's true. I have thoughts.
Starfield and a mystery game coming next episode, probably in a couple of months' time. But apart from that, guys, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.